This is Extra Paycheck Podcast, episode number 27.
You're listening to Extra Paycheck Podcast, where you will learn how to build and grow your own successful online business. Now, here's your host, Alex Soul.
Welcome to yet another episode of Extra Paycheck Podcast. This is episode number 27, and today's special guest is Jenny Fenig. Jenny is an award-winning entrepreneur, a writer, she's a coach, and she's got a really amazing story to share with you today. So enjoy today's episode. Hi, Jenny, and welcome to the Extra Paycheck Podcast.
Thanks, Alex. Psyched to be here.
Jenny, please tell us a little bit about your story and your business. What is that you do?
All right. Okay. So, story. It's like, oh my gosh, where do we begin? Well, I won't say if I didn't set out to be an entrepreneur. It wasn't like, oh, I dreamed about this ever since I was 5 years old, or, some people really know that. My dream was to be a public relations executive. That's what I wanted to do. That's what I went to college for. When I discovered that in school, I was like, this is it. This is what I was put on earth to do. This is so exciting. And from there, went to the pinnacle, like the public relations capital of the world, which was New York City. And I grew up in Florida and Georgia, which is the southern part of the United States. So going to New York was a big deal. And I worked at a massive PR agency on some of the biggest brands in the world, and was living what I thought was the dream. What I thought was my dream. And I did that for a while, but I had this sense inside of me that this can't be it. This can't be the end all be all, because while there's pieces of it that are cool, there's more of it that kind of sucks. and I just didn't see how I could spend so much of my life doing something that really didn't light me up in a way that I felt like it should. So from there, I totally changed careers. I was working there, I graduated college in 1999. So I was there for the first 4 years of my career. And prior to even to working at that company, I was an intern there when I was still in college. So it was part of my life for about 5 years, and completely changed careers because I just had this sense that I don't think public relations is it for me, which was a hard pill to swallow because, that's what I studied in school and I was really passionate about it. And then all of a sudden I wasn't a public relations girl anymore. And so I completely changed careers. And I moved into this space that I didn't even know exists, which was called conference production. And my job was to create big events for industries, mostly in the marketing and brand strategy and customer management industries, those spaces. And I would create the content for these events. I would suss out big time corporate leaders to come and share case studies from their companies and how they worked on certain projects and how they, went through challenges and found success. And I also had some budget for some of my bigger events to hire in big time keynote speakers, big people who some of the listeners might have heard of, like Tony Robbins, who is, motivational peak performance expert guy who's, walks over fire and all of that. He spoke at one of my events. Malcolm Gladwell, best-selling author behind, lots of books out there than some of you might have read.
The Outliers.
Yeah, exactly. Outliers, Blink. Tom Peters, who's like a management expert. Ken Blanchard, real about customer love. And, all these big names would be taking my stage, and I was really taken by their message, and I would watch them up there going, wow, they really seem to be loving what they're doing. They seem to love what they're talking about. It doesn't even look like work to them so much. It just looks like they're up there having fun and talking about concepts that they really enjoy, and getting pretty well paid, because I knew how much we were paying them to come and speak to us for an hour, 2 hours. And I just thought, there's something going on here that I really need to be tuned into. So it became harder and harder for me to ignore this voice inside of me that said, Jenny, your path is taking you in a different direction now. And although I was getting I was making a lot of money in that last job because I was getting a cut of profits from the events, which was a total mind blow for me. I was like, whoa, this is cool. That last job, I'm thankful, it did teach me how to think like an entrepreneur, because I started realizing that when I'd make certain decisions, or when I would spend money on bringing this person in to speak in our event, and a lot of people would want to come and hear that person, then we would earn we'd earn a nice amount of revenue in for that particular event, and I'd get a cut of the profits. So that's when I started making some real money in my life, but yet I couldn't ignore this inner voice that said to me, Jenny, yeah, although you've crossed the 6-figure mark in that work, you're not happy. And I thought prior to that point that once I made $100,000 a year, like I would have no more worries in my life. I would just be able to kind of skip through life. And that wasn't true. I found that wasn't true, because if you're earning money from something that you don't love, that's just really not connected to your mission and the assignment that you have in your soul and on this planet, then you'll always feel this void. So it was around that time where I really had this wake-up call on my 30th birthday. I was on a business trip in Las Vegas, and I was there kind of observing this conference that we had recently purchased. We purchased a business, and my job was to manage this new portfolio of conferences. And I remember sitting in the conference room. It was on a topic that I had absolutely zero interest in. And I felt like I was just dying. I was dying the slow death. I was literally my 30th birthday, May 23rd, 2007 was when I turned 30. And I had to leave the room and walk outside because I felt like I couldn't breathe anymore. I'm like, this isn't working. And I walked onto the strip in Las Vegas and just needed some air. And I heard this voice that said, Jenny, what are you doing? And I thought that it was somebody who knew me, who just had seen me on the strip and was like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing here in Las Vegas? And I was turning around looking for people, and I realized that the voice was me. And it was that truth inside of me that just said, you're done. You're coming to the end of this cycle, and you need to admit it. You need to acknowledge this and be willing to make a change. And so I made a pact with myself that I would make a change by the end of that year. I didn't know what that change was going to be, but it would in fact be something significant. And soon after started what became kind of the catalyst for the change, which was I enrolled in a 200-hour yoga teacher training certification. Yeah. And I knew that yoga was going to be kind of that pathway into the next level. And I didn't know that necessarily I was going to teach yoga. I just knew that I had to do this. I had been practicing for about 6 years at that point. I loved how it made me feel. I loved how I was able to show up in the world. I loved how it quieted my mind. I wasn't making unhealthy choices as much as I had in the past. I used to drink too much. I used to take drugs. I looked really perfect on the outside and always had had myself together and kind of looked like that classic perfect specimen of a young woman making her way in the world. But yet I had this side of me that I was exploring, and I didn't make the healthiest choices. And when I was practicing yoga, I did make healthy choices. I was able to respond to situations versus react in ways that got myself in trouble. I was able to, not drink and black out. And I was able to, really say to myself, like, how do I want to show up in this situation? I don't need that. I don't have to numb the anxiety. I like myself well enough to just show up with just me. And so I said, I got to follow this. And so I went through that training, and towards the end of the training, I was doing it while I was employed full-time, still in that job that I knew was coming to an end. I finally got the courage up to quit my job. I went from 6 figures to 0 figures literally overnight. I didn't have a plan. At that point, I still wasn't like, I'm going to be an entrepreneur now. I've been building this online presence. I'm doing none of it. That really wasn't as popular as it is now. All right. We didn't have podcasts. We didn't have these online courses weren't blowing up. Facebook, it was just in its infancy at that point. And I, at that point, was like trying to resist getting onto the platform. Some of my friends were like, you need to join Facebook. You'll love it. I'm like, no, I don't. All you guys are talking about it. I don't want to do that. That sounds kind of weird and cultish. And I just took a pause. I took a pause to really assess and reevaluate what I wanted in my life. I was married right at that point. My husband was very emotionally supportive of my decision. He'd heard me talking about it for so long. And I finally got the courage up to do it. And I just took some time. I explored different job opportunities. I was teaching some yoga. I was just sitting with this whole idea of what do I want to do next? I knew that babies were on my horizon, having children. I knew they were coming in. I didn't have kids yet, but I knew that was next. That really was next. And so I had to be mindful about what I was going to take on. I was living in New York City, which is a very intense place to live, very expensive place to live. So I couldn't just be on this, never-ending sabbatical. Like I had to figure something out because we had $4,000 a month apartment. And I needed to contribute for that. So luckily, I kept my antennas up. And I attended a workshop hosted by a real great guy. You might know who he is, Alex. His name is Jonathan Fields.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So he actually owned the yoga studio where I did my yoga teacher training. Way back in the day, he used to own the studio.
Wow.
Yeah, he since sold it, but I'm so grateful that he owned that studio at that time, and he was one of my trainers, and I was under his tutelage. And he created a workshop called "A Career Renegade: How to Make a Great Living Doing What You Love." And I signed up for it, and I went, and I met a woman who was a yoga teacher and a coach. And I said, "What is this coach thing?" And she told me, and I said, "Oh my God, that is what I've been doing my whole life. I've always been a motivating person. I inspire people. I listen. I am able to give guidance and wisdom and brainstorm with you and help you strategize and come up with ideas that you just can't see because you're in it. You're in the weeds and I'm not. So I can see things." And I said, "Oh my God, like that's a job. That's something? Like you can just do that? That's amazing." And so I just madly explored coaching and certification programs. I signed up for one pretty much immediately and just dove in feet first. And that was it. The business just started creating itself. Clients were landing in my lap. I was having opportunities to do this thing that just came so naturally to me. And the business really created itself from there. It has been a really wild road, lots of twists and turns, lots of bumps and bruises, highs and lows. But the crux of the business is I really created a coaching and training company to help women especially, and that's really what it's been for me is women. And I have, guys who are joining my tribe slowly but surely, but it's really been a place for women to come and get that support and guidance that they need to find their calling if they don't know what it is. If they were like me and were at that place where they were, in a job that just wasn't fulfilling to them anymore and they really needed to find that next step, we provide that training ground to find that calling. And then once you know your calling is, to live it and cash in on it through the form of your business. So we provide business training for those people who want to actually train to become coaches like me. We have a certification program for coaches. You can come in. We will show you what you need to do to become a skilled and knowledgeable and intuitive coach. So we have a program around that. I have a mastermind program. I wrote a book and published my book earlier this year called Get Gutsy. And so that really is the spirit of what I do. It's this Get Gutsy way where we let this message be known that there is absolutely no reason in the world to be slaving away at work that doesn't light you up. I mean, your time on this planet is really short in the grand scheme of things. We never know when we're going to take our last breath. So please do work that lights you up because that really is what your soul is here to do. We're here to make an impact with this gift that we have. And you alone have been gifted with this. Nobody has exactly what you have. And if you hold that back, then you will always feel off. You will always feel this void. You will always suffer in some way. And we are not here to suffer. That is not the point of this human existence. Yes, we will experience pain for sure. But the suffering that you might be feeling right now because you're in a dead-end job, because you aren't really getting traction in your business, that doesn't have to be the way. So my business was created to give you this guidance, to really shine a light and help you walk through that fire that you're feeling because you're in this place of doubt or fear, and really show you the way on how to build your tribe. And I have just a boatload of courses and trainings now. That's really the crux of what I do. I love teaching. I love coaching. I love mentoring. and I love writing. And so I take all those gifts that I was given, and then I have fine-tuned through my ability and willingness to invest in coaches and teachers and mentors and going to events and trainings. That's my job too, is to continue learning and growing. And I really consider myself a spiritual teacher. And so I bring the spiritual teachings of yoga, of stillness and mindfulness and, being willing to surrender and let go. I bring all of that into my people because honestly, Alex, that's what our world is craving right now. We're so highly connected. We can be tethered to our phone and to the internet 24/7, really wherever we are on the planet. There's a few places now where there's no internet connection, but it's becoming fewer and fewer. And this hyperconnectivity is actually making us sick because it's leading to anxiety and depression. And what we really need is to reach out and connect in real ways. And admit when things aren't going well and to admit when we need some extra help. And that's what I strive to create within my communities that I've built, both online and, in the real world, in person.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Crazy story, Jenny. And, I think people that will listen to this podcast, most of them will agree with you. But if we throw it out to people that don't think of entrepreneurship or anything of that sort, right? Mm-hmm. If we let them listen to this episode, they would be calling you crazy. Mm-hmm. Like how can you leave a 6-figure job to do nothing? Because like you said, you knew it wasn't your thing, but you didn't know what you should be doing, right? It's not like you left it for a business, which is also pretty crazy for a lot of people.
Yeah.
When you tell it to them.
Totally.
When I started, I started online marketing and the whole business, my own business in 2007 as well. Uh-huh. And I think I told my friends and my family, well, mostly my family, my parents, I told them that I had quit my office job almost a year after I quit it.
Wow.
Because I knew that if I don't, it doesn't really matter. Like they would have supported me anyway, but it would have been a huge shock for them when you tell them. Because for me, it was similar to your story. I did quit work at an office. And I knew I wanted to start my own business, probably online, but I had no clue what I was going to do and how I was going to start it.
Right.
So, it took a while to build it up and start having income, and then having the same level of income as the job offered me. It took me quite some time.
Right.
But it's the same thing, and I get you 100%. But I'm sure a lot of people would be like, how could you?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want me to answer that? How could I?
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. It takes a tremendous amount of faith.
In yourself.
Yes. And in the universe, I'm, as I mentioned, being the spiritual leader, I'm a very spiritual woman. And this has grown for me through my entrepreneurship journey. So those of you listening who are contemplating entrepreneurship, who are already in there and you're in those earlier stages and you have those dark moments of the soul where you're like, what is happening here? This is too hard. You have got to tap into whatever your faith is. Okay. And it's different for everybody. For me, it's just love. I believe love is our religion, and that is our universal language. And so when you can find that place of what your faith is and cultivate a spiritual practice, you're going to need that, because even when things are going well, there's still hard things that come up. To think that that's not going to happen, you're deluding yourself and you'll be very, very disappointed. So how I was able to do that is I really stepped out on faith. And when I was a teenager, I had a pivotal moment in my life occurred when my 12-year-old sister, Julie, passed away. She died from cancer, brain cancer. I was 16, and she had been sick for a little more than a year. And through that entire year, I couldn't even process the fact that she could die. I just kept thinking, well, she'll get better. We were doing these treatments. She was going through radiation, and then she went through chemo. And you're just, as a teenager especially, it's very hard to imagine that your younger sibling is going to die, or even your parent.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're invincible. You're like, we live forever. Yes. We're immortal. Everything's good. I'm going to the football game. I was a cheerleader. I'm like, I gotta go cheer at the game, and I've got to go do this little thing and go to the party. And so the thought that my my could die, I couldn't even consider it until the weekend that she died. when she was really at the end, like all of a sudden I was able to kind of open up that door inside of myself that said, this is going to happen, Jenny, and you need to just go in it. You need to go in it now. I had to actually call my father and tell him to come down because my parents were divorced. I was like, you need to come down now. He lived a state away. I was like, it's time. He wanted to not admit it either because you don't want to. I mean, it's such a hard thing to even wrap your head around. So that happened to me as a young girl, and I spent many years after that, and that really was what led to the excessive drinking. I was doing it before that too, but even deeper, the drinking, the drugs, it all was about that, the grief. So I knew at a very young age that we don't know when it's all going to when it's all going to be over. To think that you have 100 years or 30 years or 50 years or like whatever, you don't know. That is the ultimate mystery. Your soul knows. This is what I believe. Your soul knows, and your soul speaks to you. And that is why it is important to cultivate a spiritual practice. That's why you must go inside and listen. Listen, even when it sounds freaking crazy. Even when people around you tell you, you are crazy. Okay? And that was smart, Alex. You knew, your soul knew that if you were to go to your family immediately when you quit your job, they would have said, you're crazy. Why did you do that? And it would have just gotten into your head and it would have rocked you. And it wouldn't have allowed you to kind of do what you needed to do in that first year to get yourself set up so that you're doing what you're exactly doing right now. That was smart. And everyone listening, there are people in your life you aren't able to tell all of, and it's not their fault. You don't have to be angry at them. They just don't have the emotional capacity, right? They're very risk averse. They live their life through fear. They consume all this media. So for me, I knew because of that situation with my sister, and then after that, I had a death 6 months later with my best friend's brother. 2 years after that, my best friend, whose brother died, she died. So I had 3 deaths in 3 years. If I didn't know from those experiences that life is real crazy and you don't always know and there's no guarantees, then I don't know what would have taught me that. So I'm kind of an extreme case. But that is my job. That's one of the jobs that I have. That's one of the callings of my soul, is to wake people up to this. Okay. Some of you may know of Alex. I don't know if you know of this particular guy, but he has really been with me over the last few days. I had a chance to hear him speak a year ago. His name is Scott Dinsmore, and he created a real big movement called Live Your Legend. And he was young in his early 30s, but what he created, especially over the last 4 years, once he kind of birthed that mission, that concept, that business, he grew it like gangbusters. I mean, it grew, obviously by his leadership, but also just because it was what he was here to do. And his soul just took off. And he passed away, as we're recording this a few days ago, living his legend. He was climbing Mount Kilimanjaro. He was on this year-long adventure with his wife, and they were in like month 8 of the year-long adventure, and he just lived it up. And it's devastating for those of us who, on the human scale, we're just like, what? Death is very, very hard for us to process, because it's just so, it's like, it's so hard. It is so hard. It's like all of a sudden they're here and then they're not. And we're like, what? Like we just can't, it's not rational. Like we can't make sense of it. But yet what he did and the example that he led. And so those of you listening, if you don't know of his work, please check him out, liveyourlegend.net. His final blog post, Alex, is literally a manifesto. And it's about, his final blog post was called I'm Getting Off the Grid. And he really did get off the grid, right? And it was about unplugging. And so he was going through this digital detox where he was living his dream. He was hiking Mount Kilimanjaro, which apparently he'd had this dream to do it for quite some time. And he was doing it. And so, of course, none of us want to see a person like him go, because we feel like he was just getting started, right, with his mission, what else he could have done. But gosh, what he was able to accomplish in that period of time. So, everybody, you have a mission, you have a calling. That is the subtitle of my book, Get Gutsy. It's a sacred, fearless guide for finding your soul's calling and living your dream. Like, your soul has this calling, you have this mission, and there are times when you have to do things that people think you're nuts, you're crazy. Oh my God, how could you have done that, Jenny? Quit your 6-figure job. It was because I couldn't not do it anymore. My soul said to me, Jenny, it's time. It's time. And I know you're freaking out and I know you're scared, but I promise you'll always be supported as long as you're willing to take those risks and get gutsy, which is that's the mission. That's the message I'm here to share. So get used to it, guys. Get used to it. You're going to be doing some things that scare the crap out of you, but it's okay.
Yeah. I actually recently read a book by Jen Sincero, I think.
Yeah.
You Are a Badass.
Yes, I've heard of that.
It explores a similar subject matter, I guess, finding your calling.
Yeah.
And I think this is, a lot of people say it, including you, but I think people need to understand that this is something a lot harder and deeper than, it's a lot harder to do than just say it. Because what is really your calling? How do you find your calling and what you really want to do?
Yeah, and I can talk to that. And I actually have something I can gift to your listeners too, Alex, because that's what my book covers. I mean, that's what it is. I spent so many years not knowing what my calling was, and it was a debilitating feeling. I hated it. And that's what led to me drinking too much and the drugs, all that, because you want to numb that void. That is a void when you don't know it. And when we are too connected to the internet, there's so many aholisms and addictions we can go to when we aren't living life on purpose. And that's why I'm so committed to sharing what I've learned. So there are really 8 keys to living your soul's calling. And I'll, just kind of top line them during this conversation so you all can get a sense. But, the first one is vision. It is understanding how to make the juicy dream in your head real. You've got to get in touch with that inner world, as I talked about, right? That cultivating that spiritual practice. You want to get crystal clear about what you want and why. So you can get that vision through meditation, through journaling, through conscious breathing. The first thing we do when we come into this world, when our parents rejoice, is we take that breath. And the last thing that we do when we transition out of our bodies is take that breath. So do not discount the power of conscious breathing. Guided visualization is very, very powerful. I lead my clients in a lot of this. My courses and programs and my live retreats, I will lead visualizations. They are just whoa.
Sorry, yeah. Jenny, I'm going to interrupt you for a second. Can you expand on that a little bit? I've never heard of that.
Of guided visualization?
Yes.
Yeah, totally. So this is like, in some tribes, they'll go on vision quests. And so guided visualization, if you want me to, I can lead you all through a quick one right now. Kind of demo it. Okay, cool.
That'll be awesome.
So let's do it. So everyone, as long as you're in a safe space, I invite you to close your eyes. All right. Can't be driving or doing anything where you can get hurt. But if you're in a safe space, close your eyes. And if you're not, come back to this, when you are. So close your eyes. Close your eyes. Tune out the external world and let's come inward together as a crew, as a tribe of journeyers. So you close your eyes and you focus on your breath. You focus on your breath. Deep inhales, giant exhales. Feel that life force energy going in and coming out. Inhaling and exhaling. Just feeling that expansion and that letting go. That surrendering, letting go of what does not serve you any longer. And now I call in your guides to take you on this journey of the highest good, calling in your guides, calling in ancestors who have always kind of been there. You felt them with you, maybe a grandparent, a sibling, a parent, someone in your life, that guide, or maybe it's just someone you feel is particularly connected to. I invite you now to call them into your mind's eye. Visualize them. I mentioned my sister Julie. I mentioned a few other guides in my life named Mark and Sonda. They are my guides. They are my spiritual guides. My grandparents are my guides. Who are your guides? You are not on this journey by yourself. You might feel alone or lonely right now, but you in fact are not. You have spiritual guides right now. So I invite you now to call them in. Call them in. See them. Call them by name right now where you are. Call them in. I am calling you in. Julie, Sonda, Mark, my grandfather Jack Prophet, Paul Amen, Eleanor Prophet, Anne Amen. For you, Alex, do you have a sense of who your guides are? Do you have an ancestor, someone in your life who is important? And they are guides who have crossed over. Do you have a sense, Alex? Do you want to call them in by name and share?
I called him my grandfather in my head.
Good. Beautiful. So everyone listening, call them in by name. See their face. Feel their energy. Feel them. Connect in with right now. Connect in with them. And during this internal dialogue, you say to them, I want your help. Please, I'm calling in your guidance. I'm scared right now. I'm in a place of vulnerability right now. I feel like I'm stepping out on this limb. And I'm frightened. And I need your help. I want your wisdom. I want your guidance. I'm listening. Show me. Show me the way. Show me. Show me the next step to take. Show me. Show me the teacher to learn from. Show me the course to take. Show me the path to take. Show me the move to make. Show me. All right, so we are in this inner space right now. You're feeling the energy of your guide or your guides. You can have more than one. You might have a chief guide like I do. Sounds like Alex does. All right. See their face, feel their energy, feel their love. And just take this into your heart right now. Okay, the scene that you've created, I will, when you are ready, you can open your eyes. But this beautiful scene that you just conjured up, that's an example of a guided visualization. And I took you on a mini journey to connect in with your guides. You can do that for yourself at any time. You can do that. And I have these visualizations too. And as I said, I'll tell you more about how you can get this guide that I created for you, these 8 keys. So you can take it with you, you can print it out, you can put it in front of you, you can come back to it. Okay. So thank you. That was really, really powerful. I felt some pretty powerful energy during that transmission, during that visualization. Another piece of the vision is vision boarding. So that's something I've done a lot. I've guided many of my people through vision boarding exercises during different courses and programs and retreats that I've done. So a vision is one of the keys. Values is another one of the keys. This is about knowing what you stand for. All right? What matters to you? Not what matters to your best friend or to your brother, or to your parents. Like, what matters to you? Okay? Because that's the foundation of building what you're building. Otherwise, you start subscribing to someone else's rules that don't even matter to you. And that's when you start feeling really crappy. Things start feeling off. And I will tell you, especially those of you walking this entrepreneurship path, this is the nonconformist road. This is the road for the rebels. The majority of the world does not walk this road. And so if you're trying to do what the majority does, you're walking down the wrong path. Okay? So that's piece number 2, values. Piece number 3 is your why. What is your reason for being alive? Why do you do what you do? And to know this, you can look back on the story of your life and trace those pivot point moments that have made you who you are today. I shared the story about my sister and, the subsequent deaths from some of those other people who were very, very meaningful to me. That's a huge piece of my why. And then just my career journey, how I figured things out. It's a big piece of my why. It's what I bring to the world. I want to help people figure out what your calling is, what your why is, how you show up in the world. And then I give you these business building blocks that I've learned, how to build your tribe, how to do what you do, how to, just be able to do it on your own schedule. I have 3 children, so I want to be able to, work around my family, because there's no point in me just working around the clock and never spending time with my family. Like, what is that? I'm not doing that. I know you don't want to do that either. So piece number 4 is the team. That dreams need teams. So you've got to give yourself permission to get help. And there's always a way to get it, especially now with tools like Fiverr and some of these other amazing places out there where you can find talent all over the world. You don't have to do this by yourself. You can manage your life with ease and with flow, and you can get support because you cannot build your dream by yourself. At the beginning, you do feel like you are doing it like that, because I know often the resources are more limited. Cash flow is spotty or non-existent from the dream, from this piece. But you can always have resources. Like I just was talking with a client today who's building out her mission, and she was laid off from her job earlier in the year, and she was really upset by it. I'm like, but listen, they just paid her. She got severance to be able to build out her business. And, her business is building it slowly but surely. She's getting clients in, but she is the sole breadwinner in her family right now. And she took on a job, a day job that she's excited about because she knows that that's basically they're her venture capital money. So she's building out her business. Mm-hmm. So you can do that. That new job is basically like, that's her team, right? Like they're on her dream team. So you have to think about, this is like the reality. It's not just like, let's live in the whole like, woo, it's all going to be awesome. Like, let's really talk about the real stuff that is required for you to do your work in the world. The eighth key is your sacred formula. That's about baby steps plus massive action equals the sacred formula. So it is a mix of both. It's not just like, oh my gosh, I just launched my website. The baby step is I sent an email to somebody who might be able to help me launch my website, or I started writing the copy for the website, or started researching what I want my website to even look like, or what my thing is. What is your thing? Right? So it's like, it's the mix of both, and you're going to be practicing that from here on out. Key number 6 is looking at the tolerations and bullshit, not tolerating people, places, and things that don't serve you anymore. And in order for you to really rise up on your mission, you've got to be willing to let go and declutter and really make a list and eliminate everything in your life that doesn't bring meaning. And this isn't easy, and there'll be people who will be disappointed by your choice. But if you're really serious about fulfilling your mission, and I do feel like that's what spirit-driven entrepreneurs are all about. Like, we are here to fulfill the mission. It's not just like, I want to make all this money and create a business I don't care about just because it makes a lot of money. Like, that's not what I'm doing. That's not what the people who are really like in the world that I'm living in, like, that's what fills me up. That guy Scott Dinsmore, that's not what he was about. He was about building community and changing lives and helping people. You've got to be willing to let go of certain things that are holding you back. Okay. And that's really when you'll take off, and it is beautiful, and you'll still have those challenges, but you'll just know that you're living life on purpose, and you will touch lives in such a powerful way. Key number 7 is called daring to decide. And this is about being willing to make decisions. I can't tell you, Alex, the number of people I have met or mentored or just kind of heard, and they are terrified when it comes to making a decision. They will take years, and we don't have that much time, right? In the grand scheme of things, like, our life is a speck of dust. Okay? And just freaking make a decision. Make a decision. Don't worry if it's the right decision or it's the wrong. Just make the decision. You can always change it, fix it, evolve it. Just make the decision. The worst decision is making no decision at all. Get on the plane, go to the event, book the course, book the venue so you could host your workshop, put your blog post out there, put that social media post out there that you're scared to because you're like, oh my gosh, what are people going to think? Just freaking do it. Just do it. Stop overanalyzing so much. I dare you to make a decision this week that scares you. And number 8 is sacred rituals. True riches lie in sacred simplicity. These rituals are these golden opportunities that allow you to tap into the divine energy and find the truth that is already inside of you. So, I feel like so much of our world, we've forgotten some of these rituals, and I want you to bring them back. Maybe they're cultural rituals that you have through kind of the tribe you were born into. Some of those rituals might bring meaning into your life. Maybe it's some new rituals that you've uncovered that you're like, this is really cool, and I want to bring this in. Perhaps it's just your morning ritual of drinking coffee or tea before the rest of your house gets up, or you take a walk every morning and you thank God, or you thank source or spirit, whatever your belief system is, for giving you the gift of another day. Perhaps your ritual is, you see some of those athletes who have rituals before they go play, the game. They like do some kind of like hand gesture or some kind of like some kind of dance, and that's great because that's moving your body, and you really are connecting in with the divine. So find your ritual, create your ritual that brings meaning. Maybe I actually started a new ritual this morning, Alex, where, like, for the first time in forever, I did not check my phone email, Facebook, any of that stuff for like many hours. I didn't do it. I took my kids to school. I took my daughter to this really cool parent baby class, which was it was like literally a slice of heaven being with these people and watching.
That's awesome.
And I didn't check any of that stuff. That stuff wasn't in my brain or in my body. I just was able to be in that space, and I wasn't affected by any of the stuff, which honestly, because I was talking to a client earlier today, I'm like, honestly, any of the stuff I would have checked would have had little to no relevance to my life. And you all know what I'm talking about. It would have been entertaining. It would have been kind of interesting, but it really wouldn't have had any relevance to my family or to my work, really. When you think about it, like when we get honest with ourselves. And that was what Scott shared in his last blog post, was about like just ending this habitual like addiction that we have, just checking things, to always be connected, because it robs us of living. The point of life is to not always be tethered. To be in a restaurant, maybe don't get on your freaking phone. If you're waiting for somebody, like just look around, maybe strike up a conversation, gasp, with the person sitting next to you. Who's actually in the place with you, instead of on this little device that you're holding. Like, what would that be like? What would that be like? So I'd like to encourage everyone listening to go read his last blog post that he was able to get out into the world. It is profound and epic, and I feel like that was one of his most beautiful messages to share. Is that so that's really the 8 keys to living your soul's calling, and finding them. If those of you out there who are like, I don't even know what it is, if you live what I just laid out for you, you will find it. You will find it. And Alex, if it's cool with you, I can give a link where peeps can go and
Sure.
this. Okay. So you all can go to jennyfenig.com/calling. jennyfenig.com/calling. And that's my name, jennyfenig.com/calling. You can grab it. It's one sheet. It's this really simple guide. It's beautifully laid out. My designer created it for you, and it's really my gift to you. You can grab that. And those of you who want to check out my book, you can do so too. It's called Get Gutsy. It's on Amazon. You'll find it there. I've gotten just so many notes from readers, and that just brings a lot of joy to my heart, that tells me they were able to find their way. They're able to find their way. One in particular really stands out to me, because she actually found my book in my local bookstore, because we have my books in our local bookstores, and it literally like jumped off the shelf at her. And she had just been laid off from her job, and she was very, very senior in healthcare, in like a healthcare hospital organization. And she was just really like, what do I do now? What do I do now? And the book just found her, and she read it, and she said she hadn't read a book in years. She didn't like reading books, but she saw my book. She just happened to be at the store, and she bought it, and she read it, and she ended up getting in touch and sharing. And we were in the midst of enrolling for my inaugural class of my coach certification course, which was called Get Gutsy Coach Training School. And my intuition said, she is your next student, Jenny. And I just shared that with her. I'm like, listen, this is where I feel you are, and I want you to check this out. I feel like you're supposed to be in this group. If you feel it too, please step forward, submit your application. And that's what happened. And she joined our inaugural class, and I have a call with her very soon. She's going to be one of my first Get Gutsy certified coaches. And it was all because of me, putting together this path to finding your soul's calling, put it into the form of a book. Some of you listening might have a book inside of you. And if in fact you do, I encourage you to do it. You can self-publish these days. I won't say it's the easiest thing in the world to actually write that book. It brings up a lot of memories and hard stuff that you need to relive, but it will be such a worthwhile endeavor and pursuit for you. So just whatever is inside of you, I encourage you to birth that and give it life and breathe into it, and know that you're running a marathon, not a sprint. Okay. So pace yourself, make sure that you engage in sacred self-care, take care of the inner landscape, drink a lot of water, exercise, move your body, surround yourself with positive people, and know that you're going to be afraid a lot, but don't let that fear hold you back.
Thank you for sharing all of that, Jenny, so much. And I have one more question for you, and it's an important one.
Yes.
What would be your most important suggestion to those who want to start a business or who just started a business? What is that they should do or pay the most attention to?
Okay, great question. Growing your tribe. Growing your tribe and being of service. So I actually created a whole course around this. It's called Tribe Building Bootcamp, because this is what I wish I would have known. Like, if I could go back in time and change anything about my journey, I'm grateful because I'm talking to you right now and I'm here and it's like awesome. But if I had to do it all over again and I was like, oh my gosh, okay, to grow it even faster, it would be grow my tribe. And really leverage the tools of the internet. The internet wasn't what it was when I got started as it is now. So, put yourself out there, engage in a lot of these, Facebook groups and, Facebook ads can be very effective, and have a CRM, a customer relationship management tool. Invest in that. There's some that aren't that much money every month. I use Infusionsoft in my business, which is a more sizable investment. That's where I am in my business. But, where you are, it could be MailChimp. It could be, I know some people use like iContact, they're Aweber. I've heard really good things about MailChimp, and I think in terms of price point, that can be like a really, really great option. But there are others out there, and start building your list. Get people engaged in what you're doing. That the gold is in your tribe. Okay, which translates to a list. And it's not just like, well, I have a lot of people who follow me on Facebook. Like, that doesn't count. I mean, that's cool, but you want to have their email addresses so you can stay in touch with them, so you can provide value to them. And you just serve and you give value, and you either write pieces or you create videos, like whatever you're great at. Like, what is your thing that you're great at? Do that. Put magic out into the world. There's so many great tools out there, but it really comes back to that tribe and loving them hard. And the way that you love them hard is to stay in touch with them and communicate with them. Let them know that you care. All right. And that's what a lot of my clients, I just drill that into their head. I'm like, you got to get that going on. Okay. Get that list going on, because once you love your list and you give them value, like, it really becomes like, that becomes what I lovingly call like your ATM machine. Okay. That's because you will be able to put offers out there and people will buy them. The people who are on your list will buy your stuff. They will buy your stuff because you've given them so much value, and they love you, and they're like, oh my gosh, look what she's doing. And some of whom you'll never hear from. You're like, what? And then all of a sudden they'll buy like your thing that's $5,000 or that's $10,000 or that's $200, whatever. The dollar amount isn't even important. It's just that you put it out there. And it will be scary because you'll say, oh, well, if I put this, some people will unsubscribe, and that. Don't even worry about the freaking unsubscribes, okay? Some people are like, but I put something out there and 5 people unsubscribed. Like, yay, that's awesome. That means you put something out there that was of value, and those 5 people just decided that they weren't interested in your message right now. And that's okay because they made space for people who are interested.
Exactly.
Okay? So don't take anything personally. Don't attach to anything. Okay? When you attach, that's when you suffer. So just put it out there. Pray. Ask for guidance from the universe. Ask for guidance from your guides, right? We did that visualization earlier, and bring it back to the tribe. Love your tribe. Grow that list. When you grow that list, that's when you really have I won't even call it power, but you have strength. You'll have strength. There's strength in the tribe.
Yeah. And thanks for sharing all of that. And I've had this similar conversation with quite a few of my guests, and we always compared email marketing to, let's say, social media followings, right? Yeah. And a lot of people might not know, but when you post something on your Facebook page or your business page, less and less people actually get to see it. Even people that do follow you and like your page, I think some people reported numbers as low as 4% visibility.
Yes.
So let's say you have 1,000 followers and only 40 of them will actually see the message. While if you have 1,000 email subscribers, at least 900 will actually receive that email. Right. I would say like 980 will receive the email, and most of them will open it as long as they like what you usually put out there.
I mean, open rates are like anywhere from depending on it could be 15 to 30%. I'd say for like, kind of when you email your entire list. But like when you have people who opt in for something in particular from you, like a training, or they're in a course of yours, the open rates are much, much higher. So you can be putting out like free trainings, like I'm doing one tonight to train new and aspiring coaches. And that's how I'll open up registration for our next class in coach training school. So when we send out the recording to this, we're doing doing a video training tonight, the vast majority of the people who opted in for that will open it because they said, I want this training. I need to learn this. This is where I am in my journey. So yeah, the email list is where it's at. It just is. Exactly. It just is. And you want to have the presence on social media. Of course, I love Facebook very much. Instagram, you guys come follow me there. Come connect with me there. Tell me who you are. I've recently gotten into Periscope, and that's been another, fun arena for me. But it's the email. It's the email. Do not neglect that. Start today. Exactly where you are. I think some of those, like even MailChimp, some of them even have like free option to kind of get you in. Yeah. So just get in and you'll learn as you go. Start today. If you want it bad enough, start today. Start where you are. Brick by brick, you lay it down and you get people on board who are just fired up by the mission. It will blow your mind, the impact you're able to have in this world, I promise you. And that's what it's about. It's the people you can help. It's the legacy that you're going to leave in the world. And it's why you're here. I'm sure of it.
Great advice, Jenny. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. I had a blast talking to you, and I appreciate all your advice and your tips.
Yes, thanks, Alex. Keep shining your light and doing your work in the world.
Thank you for tuning in to 27th episode of Extra Paycheck Podcast. As usual, I will be putting up a show notes page at extrapodcast.com/27. This is where I'll be sharing all the resources and other stuff we talked about in today's show. If you haven't already, you could subscribe to the show directly on iTunes Store. So go on iTunes and search for Extra Paycheck Podcast, or simply go to extrapodcast.com/iTunes. This is where you can also leave a review and a rating for the show. These things help me tremendously. So once again, thank you for tuning in, and I'll talk to you next Monday.